How the Commonwealth Replaced the Empire. Lessons Untold. Episode 3. Empires rarely end in a single moment. They end when systems stop working. In the previous episode, we saw how the British Empire became financially unsustainable, how debt, currency pressure, and rising administrative costs made direct rule impossible to maintain. But this leaves a harder question. If empire ended financially, why did so many newly independent states struggle once it disappeared? Why did some countries stabilize and prosper, while others entered decades of crisis? And if Britain could no longer afford empire, what replaced it? The answer was not independence alone. It was institutional continuity. This is the story of how the Commonwealth replaced the empire, and why its outcomes were so uneven. The problem: independence didn't solve. By the mid-20th century, Britain faced a dilemma no empire had solved before. Independence movements were unstoppable. India gained independence in 1947. Ghana followed in 1957. Nigeria in 1960. Singapore in 1965. Independence solved a political problem. It did not automatically solve an economic one. Why new nations struggled after empire? Colonial states had not been designed as fully independent economies. Many depended on single export commodities, imperial trade preferences, British administrative coordination, shared legal and financial systems. When empire withdrew, these coordinating structures weakened overnight. New governments inherited borders, but not always functioning institutions. Civil services were inexperienced. Currencies lacked credibility. Capital markets were shallow or non-existent. The question was no longer who ruled. The question became who could manage complexity. Some states adapted. Others struggled because independence removed the system faster than replacement institutions could be built. The meeting that reinvented the Commonwealth. The London Declaration of 1949. The turning point came earlier than most histories emphasize. In April 1949, leaders gathered in London for what appeared to be a routine Commonwealth Prime Ministers meeting. The real trigger was India. India had become independent in 1947 under Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, but planned to become a republic, meaning it would no longer recognize King George VI as sovereign. Under existing rules, this meant India would have to leave the Commonwealth entirely. For Britain, this posed a strategic crisis. India was the largest former colony. Losing it would likely trigger a chain reaction across Asia and Africa. The meeting was hosted by British Prime Minister Clement Attlee, whose Labour government was already overseeing rapid decolonisation. Participants included Jawaharlal Nehru, India; Louis Saint Laurent, Canada; Ben Chifley, Australia; Peter Fraser, New Zealand; D.S. Senanayake, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka; Liaquat Ali Khan, Pakistan; representatives from South Africa and other dominions. The core question: could republics remain inside what had once been an imperial structure? Opposition and debate. Not everyone supported the change. Some British conservatives feared it diluted imperial unity. In South Africa, Prime Minister Daniel Marlin worried that equality principles could later challenge apartheid policies. Traditionalists across parts of the Commonwealth argued the monarchy must remain central to legitimacy. But Attlee and Nehru understood something deeper. Without reform, the Commonwealth would collapse. With reform, it could survive. The declaration passed, quietly reshaping global governance. The decision. The solution became the London Declaration. It redefined the Commonwealth fundamentally. Member states would be fully sovereign, politically independent, equal in status. The British monarch would no longer rule them, but instead serve as a symbolic head of the Commonwealth. This transformed the organisation from empire into voluntary association. Britain's financial problem. After WWII, the new arrangement solved an immediate economic challenge for Britain. Direct empire required, military bases across continents, colonial administrations staffed by British officials, security interventions during unrest. All of this required money Britain no longer possessed after World War II. The Commonwealth offered a cheaper model, Britain reduced direct spending while maintaining cooperation networks. Example was the sterling area. One clear example was the sterling area system. Many Commonwealth countries continued holding reserves in pounds sterling and trading within a shared financial framework centred on London. This meant former colonies still used British banking channels. Trade settlements flowed through London markets. Financial influence persisted without colonial administration. Britain no longer paid to govern these territories, yet remained central to their economic systems. Access without administration, connection without cost, defence without empire. Another example was defence coordination. Rather than maintaining expensive permanent garrisons, Britain increasingly relied on agreements and training partnerships. In Malaysia and Singapore during the 1960s, British withdrawal reduced costs dramatically. Yet military cooperation and advisory roles continued. Influence shifted from occupation to partnership. Commonwealth. Why outcomes diverged. The Commonwealth created continuity, but continuity alone did not guarantee success. The difference lay in institutional capacity. Countries that strengthened rule of law, administrative professionalism, fiscal discipline, and openness to trade used Commonwealth networks as launch platforms. Singapore is the clearest case. Why Singapore succeeded while others failed. Under Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore retained common law structures, enforced anti-corruption policies, and prioritized credibility with global investors. The inherited system became an advantage. Other states faced different realities. Rapid political turnover disrupted governance. State-controlled economic experiments weakened fiscal stability. Ethnic and regional tensions strained institutions. The Commonwealth could provide frameworks, but not internal cohesion. Empire had once supplied administrative coordination externally. Independent states now had to generate it internally. Some succeeded, others struggled to replace what empire had previously organized. The invisible system that survived empire. The Commonwealth worked because power itself was changing. Global influence was moving away from territory towards systems. Shared language enabled diplomacy. Legal traditions enabled investment. Educational exchanges created elite networks. Thousands of civil servants, lawyers, economists, and engineers trained through Commonwealth programs carried similar administrative assumptions. Power survived not through command, but through familiarity. The empire ended visibly. Its operating logic endured quietly, answering the question, successes and failures. So why did some newly independent states struggle? Because independence removed imperial coordination faster than domestic institutions could replace it. And why did others succeed? Because they transformed inherited systems into functioning national institutions. Empire had provided structure. The Commonwealth preserved connections. But success depended on internal governance. History often credits independence movements. Less often does it examine institutional inheritance. Yet institutions, not declarations, determined long-term outcomes. Power without empire. The British Empire did not simply vanish. It evolved into a network designed for a new financial and political reality. The Commonwealth allowed Britain to reduce costs while maintaining influence. It allowed new nations to remain connected while asserting sovereignty. And it revealed a deeper truth. Power rarely disappears. It reorganizes. Who really ran the Commonwealth? But institutions do not run themselves. Behind the Commonwealth stood individuals few voters ever elected. Diplomats, civil servants, technocrats, advisors operating between nations. They shaped decisions, built networks, and quietly influenced global outcomes. In the next episode, the men who ran the Commonwealth without being elected. The story of the people and the systems that guided international cooperation after empire. Lessons Untold. Relax, review, reflect.